the Black Moon Lilith, Vesta, and the Anaretic degree South Node Grand Fire Trine. Hi, my name's Megan. I am a feminist Hellenistic astrology student. So if you are here for feminism and Hellenistic astrology and goddess mythology, you are in the right place. Please stick around. Okay, yesterday I recorded this episode and then I had some audio issues and I sat there at the end of the day with my Black Moon Lilith in Capricorn and I thought, is this too much? Am I pushing this? Is it too much? I kept saying that over and over and over. And I decided at the end of the day just to set it aside and sleep on it and then come back to it. I also have this really dear friend who did something this week that pushed her own Lilith in the 11th house about community and how she was showing up in her community. And she said she felt unnerved and uncomfortable. And I could see and feel really the vulnerability in while she was talking about it. And it was really in the same conversation. We were talking about the same thing. And I could really see it. I could see the pattern. I could see the patterning and how we speak about it and how we show up about it. And that is exactly what I want to talk to us about it today. So it wasn't like this triumphant girl boss moment, right? For either of us, it was shaky and it was raw and it was confronting. And so these buttons that have been installed in us about shame and fear of exile and the terror of being called crazy and the terror of being called a bad mother, a bad owner, a bad employee, a bad friend, a bad feminist, like the terror of losing our reputation in the community, those buttons are not designed to make us feel empowered when we change. Sometimes the changing feels like dying. It feels incredibly vulnerable. Sometimes saying the thing feels like we're walking off a cliff. But here's the critical piece. That's the point of the button. So the button isn't just broken. It's working exactly as it is designed. Its entire purpose is to police us. It is there to administer tiny electric shocks the moment that we even brush against the edge of the cage. So it's there to make us doubt our own perception. It's there to sound a lot like intuition because it is a quieter, softer voice telling us too much, too much, too much, too much. That is the very definition of gaslighting. So when my Capricorn Lilith said, this is too much, it wasn't a sign to stop. It was just the button doing its job. And then my friend's 11th house Lilith felt the floor drop out from under her as she started to speak. And it wasn't a sign that she was wrong. It was the button doing its job. So I put the recording aside and here we are today. I slept on it. I had some ideas and it turns out overnight came even more goodness with evidence that the cracks in the system are getting bigger. But today, Vesta is stationing retrograde. Dolly Parton just went home. Lindsay Clancy's defense is forcing a jury to look at the crazy woman button that we've talked about so many times and ask who installed the button. And Keisha Golden stared down a 60-year prison sentence and said no, and then went home to her daughter. So today I am recording this again, not because the button is gone, I still feel vulnerable, but because I finally understand the button only has the power if we are afraid of the shock. And this grand fire trine, this is grounding the circuit. The shock is just electricity and electricity is just fire. So let's talk about why the world is burning and why the women who are supposed to be the victims of this pyre are actually the ones that are holding the match. Before we dive in, hi, my name is Megan. I'm a feminist Hellenistic astrology student. I release episodes every single day here with a focus on feminism and Hellenistic astrology and goddess mythology. Black Moon Lilith is a point of power. So the exile, the too muchness, whatever that thing was for us as we grew up, that becomes then the point of power. if this resonates for you and you want to follow along, I love that. If you like the word feminism, I love that. If you enjoy hearing about feminism, I love that. If the word makes you a little uncomfortable and it feels exclusive to you, feminism, then this probably isn't the place for you. Okay, if you would like a reading from me, if you like my style and you want a reading, please come for a reading. I would love to do that. I just recently, in the last, 9 months ago, started formally studying astrology after really like a lifelong interest, but not really understanding anything about it. And only just recently learned my big three, right? So it's been a long time and I've been a slow study. However, so let's see, 7 months ago, it was the February eclipses. I started these episodes. I started writing and releasing on YouTube. And then shortly after that, I started readings. And so I really just want to see as many charts as I possibly can and learn how to develop my own vocabulary of learning to see the patterns and also really getting to meet you and what does it look like? Like what do certain aspects and what do certain placements look like in a life? How have you made those work? What have been the struggles for you? I love seeing that, but really like what do you need? Because if you want to know about your upcoming year and you have a birthday coming up, that would be a solar return reading. If you want to look at your birth chart reading, what was happening in the moment that you took your first breath? And how does that now translate into your life? What does that mean with strengths that you have and weaknesses that you have? How do we work with that? How do we work with the things that may be getting in the way? And how do we work with the things and enhance them, the things that really work for you? How do we do that? That's a general reading. And we go in, and I spend about 3 hours preparing for every reading. So I really get to know you and your chart, and then to be able to sit with you at the same time. I love that. Also, you may want a pre-recorded reading, and you may just want to take the time when you are available, not when I am available, to enjoy your reading. You may also live on the other side of the world. You may also just not have a convenient schedule with my schedule in Europe. Absolutely fine. Just when you schedule the reading, let me know so that I don't wait for you while doing the reading. And then I record it while we're talking. During the appointment time. And then I send it to you and you can enjoy and watch as many times as you like. You can download it. You can do anything you want with it. So I would love that. And there is a particular reading if our girl, Black Moon Lilith, is whispering in your ear. You may want a different kind of reading, and it's called a Black Moon Lilith and the Lots reading. And what I'm discovering is that there are parts of our charts that really are keys to be able to unlock parts of ourselves that we didn't know that we had, or we have had experiences of, but we didn't know how to unlock it. And how do we reach those points on purpose of creativity and satisfaction and inspiration, which then often leads to wealth? And that would be a Black Moon Lilith and the Lots reading, and that is at a special price, and that's down in the description box. I have tons of videos on Black Moon Lilith and the goddesses and the Black Moon Lilith Fire Trine, which has been forming all summer long. Actually, back to the spring. I think it was the first video. So here we go. Let me just say, I have membership tiers on Buy Me a Coffee, or you can buy me a Sprite Zero for my one of my daily doses of joy. And okay, that's it. Let's get to it. So there are 2 women in the courts this week. In Massachusetts, Lindsay Clancy stands accused of murdering her children. Cora, 5, Dawson, 3, and Callan, 8 months. The defense says that she was in the grip of postpartum psychosis, a devastating mental illness that can cause hallucinations and delusions and a complete break from reality. A forensic psychiatrist testified that she was clearly psychotic, quote unquote, on the day that she killed them, almost like a puppet and someone else was pulling the strings. The prosecution says that she planned it. The jury is deliberating. No, the jury's not deliberating. the council is giving rebuttal arguments right now. That was wrong. Okay, she remains paralyzed from the waist down after jumping from a second-story window, or, as it looks, being pushed. She will never walk again. She will never hold another child. In Chicago, Keisha Golden called the police over 50 times for protection from her boyfriend, Calvin Sidney. She obtained an order of protection in July of 2022 after he allegedly punched her in the face. She was 8 months pregnant when he slammed her head against a countertop. She grabbed a knife and stabbed him once in the leg, severing his femoral artery. He died. She was charged with first-degree murder. On August 24th, the day before her trial was to begin, she pled guilty to involuntary manslaughter. She accepted 2 years of probation. Quote, "This is a rational decision, but it is not a just outcome," her attorney said. She is not guilty of these charges, but there isn't a woman or mother alive that, when faced with spending 20 to 60 years in prison, wouldn't take a plea to probation. She was bullied into a plea deal. She pled guilty to something that she was innocent of because the alternative was not a choice at all. She spoke outside the courthouse and apologized to Sidney's family and said, "The first sign that y'all see that someone is aggressive, please get out of the relationship. Please leave. Please don't be like me." At the same time, this week, Canada walked away from submissive trade negotiations with the United States, refusing to be the extracted resource for an empire that is in decline. And the Supreme Court issued a ruling on the mail-in ballots, which really pushed it back to the states because the Supreme Court doesn't rule on executive orders, and the states will be pursuing lawsuits. None of these are disparate headlines because they're symptoms of this cosmic alignment that has been building for months, and it perfects on the 27th of August. So the Grand Fire Trine is not a gentle harmony. It is a closed circuit of resistance, a triangle of ignition between the exiled woman, the sacred priestess, and the threshold of systemic collapse. Sounds big, right? Black Moon Lilith at 27 degrees, 50 minutes of Sagittarius. Vesta, 27 minutes, 48 degrees of Aries, stationing retrograde. And then the South Node at 29 degrees, 50 minutes of Leo. The Anaretic degree, the final flare before then moving further into Leo. Now, here's the interesting thing about the nodes is that they travel backwards. So the 29th degree, as we're saying, is the Anaretic degree. It still is the Anaretic degree. It still has that point of power into it. But really, it's the first degree in Leo because it's going to move back to 28 and then 27 and then 26 as it moves across Leo. This moment was the moment where the eclipse was. This is the moment. So it's not arriving at Leo, it's departing from it. So this means that 29 degrees Leo is not the last chance. It's the moment that the old fire is then exhaled. So if the pyre that the system built for the luminous woman is now being turned into the source of her own ignition. Yesterday, August 25th, no, she died on the 26th. Yesterday, 26th, 2026, Dolly Parton passed away in Nashville at the age of 80. Her nephew confirmed it in a video posted to her social media accounts. She died peacefully, surrounded by loved ones. Dolly Parton is the perfect embodiment of Black Moon Lilith. She was the woman who took up all the space. She was openly Christian. She said that she loved Jesus, and she had breast implants and wore red lipstick and full makeup and high heels and her signature blonde wig. She never apologized for taking up space. She never apologized for how she looked. She refused to put in any box. Even more important was her generosity. Through the Dollywood Foundation and the Imagination Library, she supported childhood literacy for decades. That program has sent over 332 million books to children. In 2020, she donated $1 million to Vanderbilt University, funding the part of the Moderna COVID vaccine research. She deliberately avoided becoming a billionaire by aggressively giving her money away. That is Vesta-like devotion. She devoted her wealth and her flame to community, not to hoarding it for herself or to having it make more money for her. The Imagination Library sends out 1 million books every month. So the astrological resonance here was Vesta went retrograde, Dolly died on the same day. Vesta stationed. And it's I don't see it as a coincidence. Vesta is the priestess, the guardian of the devoted flame. Dolly's life was Vesta's life. She devoted her talent, her wealth, and her light to the world, but she was never owned by anyone. I heard, I didn't confirm this before recording, but that she was invited to the White House by the current person sitting in the White House, and for more than once for a Presidential Medal of Honor, and she declined. She is the Black Moon Lilith archetype, a Christian woman with breast implants, makeup, wigs, heels, and unapologetic femininity and sexuality. She aggressively took up space. She aggressively gave. She refused to become a billionaire because she knew that her wealth was not her flame. Her flame was music and stories and books for children. On the day that Vesta went retrograde, her flame returned. In a few days, the Pisces lunar eclipse will illuminate her. The September 2025 Pisces lunar eclipse. I don't know why I wrote 2025. She has, Dolly's descendant is in Pisces. So the descendant represents the public, the audience, the partner. Her entire life was in service to her audience. Her death comes in the eclipse shadow, marking the closing of the chapter. So Dolly Parton was the patriarchy's, she was not burned. She burned brightly her entire life, and then she chose her own time. But here is the patriarchy's hypocrisy, right? The White House released a statement about Dolly Parton, calling her the best person ever. But in the same year, that administration defunded her Imagination Library program. Missouri cut the program's funding from $6 million to $2 million and then froze new enrollments. As many as 170,000 children could have lost access to books. So they praise the flame, but then try to extinguish what it illuminates. Dolly knew the game. She played it her entire life. She asked for, instead of flowers or gifts to the family, for the Imagination Library to be funded again. She smiled, she shone, she gave. She's just a perfect human being. So let's talk about Lilith through Simone de Beauvoir. In The Second Sex, she writes, she is defined and differentiated with reference to men and not be with reference to her. So she is the incidental, she is the inessential as opposed to the essential. He is the subject, he is the absolute, she is the other. Lilith is the absolute other. She refused to be defined relative to Adam. She refused to be the incidental. She chose exile over inessentiality. So this is the foundational act of feminist subjectivity, the refusal to be the object, the refusal to be the negative, and the refusal to exist only in the shadow of the male subject. Lilith's truth is the truth of the other. It is the truth of the woman who calls the police 50 times and is still not believed. It is the truth of the mother whose suffering is pathologized as postpartum psychosis, while the father's violence is excused as stress. It is the truth that the legal system, the language of the law, the courts, the narrative that the state tells about who is a criminal and who is a victim was never designed to hear her. The system is structurally designed to hear the male subject and to silence the female subject. She writes that women are condemned to immanence, trapped in the repetitive, the domestic, the biological, while man transcends through action and art and politics. Lilith in Sagittarius is the revolt against immanence. She is the transcendence of the feminine. She is the woman who says, my truth is not domestic, my voice is not private, my experience is not anecdotal, it is political. Keisha Golden is the perfect, grotesque mirror of this. The media narrative desperately wanted her to be the violent woman, hysterical, crazy ex, aggressive female, right, whose biology betrayed her. But the truth is, much more simple and much more devastating, was she was trapped in an abusive relationship. She was failed by the police 50 times, and when she finally defended herself, she was punished. Lilith says the violent woman is not violent. The violent woman is the one who survives. And usually, as we have learned, that the violent woman is really acting out of reactive abuse instead of really being violent. Lindsay Clancy's case is the same grotesque mirror. The media narrative desperately wants her to be the mad woman in the attic, right? The hysterical, imminent female whose biology betrayed her. But the defense is forcing a conversation. What does it mean if a mother breaks? What does it mean when the system that was supposed to support her fails her so completely that she becomes unrecognizable to herself? Lilith says the mad woman is not mad. The mad woman is the one who sees clearly. Andrew Dworkin taught us that pornography is not about sex. It is about the inequality of power. It is the visual documentation of the subjugation of the female body to male will. But Dworkin's larger project was about sovereignty, the fundamental right of a woman to own her body and to do with it as she wishes. Vesta is the goddess of sovereignty. The Vestal virgins were not virgins in the modern sex-negative sense. They were women who claimed their bodies as their own, who refused the marital contract that transferred ownership of a woman from her father to her husband. They were women who served the sacred flame on their own terms. For this, they were revered, but they were also feared. And their sovereignty was a threat to the patrilineal order. Vesta, at 27 degrees 48 minutes of Aries, stationing retrograde, is sovereignty intensifying in isolation. Aries is the sign of the self. Vesta here is devoted to her own existence. She is not devoted to the community, not to the marriage, not to the state. She is devoted to the flame of her own being. And when Vesta stations retrograde, she is saying, I will no longer pour my sacred energy into a partnership that extracts from me and gives me nothing in return. This is the sovereign refusal. This is the priestess turning her back on the corrupt temple. For women, this is the refusal to be the good wife in a nation that beats her. This is Keisha Golden finally saying enough after 50 calls. This is Lindsay Clancy's defense team saying the prosecution's narrative is a lie. For women, the retrograde station is a direct instruction. Withdraw your fire from structures that do not honor your sovereignty. Do not pour your devotion into a partner, a job, a political system, or a family structure that extracts your energy while giving you nothing. Vesta's retrograde is that sacred pause. It is the moment when the priestess turns in to ask, is this worthy of my flame? And if the answer is no, she leaves. She's not being spiteful, she's being holy. Keisha Golden's plea deal is a devastating example of what happens when the system refuses to honor a woman's sovereignty. She did not choose probation because she was guilty. She chose it because the alternative was 60 years in prison. The system forced her to withdraw her innocence to trade her truth for her freedom. That is not sovereignty. Lindsay Clancy's trial is the same. The system is trying to extract a conviction from a woman who is already a prisoner in her own paralyzed body. The prosecution wants to make her a symbol of maternal failure. The defense wants to make her the symbol of systemic collapse. But Vesta says the sovereignty is not in a verdict. The sovereignty is in the refusal to disappear and how she shows up every day. I have been watching images of her as the trial continues, and every day she sits up a little bit taller. Her face is held up a little bit higher. It's like every day she's gaining a little bit more strength in maybe she wasn't as crazy as she's been told that she is. Keisha Golden is still speaking, and she went home. So the fire is not extinguished. Julia Kristeva in Powers of Horror defines the abject as that which disturbs identity and system and order. The abject is the corpse, the wound, the excrement, the things that we expel to define the borders of self. The abject is the mother's body because it reminds us of our own materiality, our own vulnerability, and our own death. Patriarchy is the project of abjecting the feminine. Women, bodies, desires, blood, wombs are expelled from the symbolic order to create that illusion of the pure and clean and rational male subjectivity. The witch hunts were the literal, violent abjectation of the feminine, and the burning, it was the expulsion. The South Node at 29 degrees, 50 minutes of Leo is the return of the abject. But here's the nuance. The South Node is moving backwards. It's not approaching 29 degrees Leo. It's leaving 29 degrees Leo. So this means that 29 degrees Leo is the threshold of ejection. That Leo is trying to hold on to his throne, but the node is retrograde, and the cosmic structure is forcing him out. The Anaretic degree is the degree of crisis. It is the final desperate grasp of the dying sign. So in Leo, it is the tyranny of the ego, the demand for total visibility and total control, the patriarchal imperative to be the only light. And at 29 degrees, this tyranny is unraveling. It is exposed as hollow, and the Sun King is burning out, not because the fire is gone, but because the fire is leaving him to find new vessels. Now, again, the nuance. Yes, it is the Anaretic degree, but now then the node is traveling across Leo. So this is only the beginning. This is only the beginning of the next 19 months of the South Node being in Leo. Kristeva writes that the abject does not kill the subject. It sets the subject in motion. The expulsion of the feminine has been the foundation of the Western subject. Now, with the South Node at 29 degrees Leo, that foundation is cracking. And the abjected feminine, Lilith, the exile, is returning, not as a corpse, but as a living fire. Keisha Golden and Lindsay Clancy are the abjected women. They have been expelled from the symbolic order, made into monsters so that the system can maintain its illusion of order. But the South Node at 29 degrees Leo is the return of the repressed. Their names are being spoken, their stories are being told, the expulsion is failing, and the abject is re-entering. Mary Daly in Pure Lust writes of the elemental fire as the life force of the feminist self. She distinguishes between the sadistic fires of patriarchy, the pyres, the burning, the hellfire sermons, and the elemental fires of the woman who refused to be consumed. The elemental fire is the fire that does not destroy, it illuminates and it energizes. It is the fire of being. This grand fire trine is the reconnection to the elemental fire. Lilith, Sagittarius, is the truth of the fire. Vesta, Aries, is the devotion to the fire. And the South Node, Leo, is the release of the fear of the fire. So this is a closed circuit of power. It does not need the approval of the air signs, which are logic and rationality and law, or the earth signs, which are capital and resources and property. It is a self-sustaining triangle of pure, passionate, ontological presence. This is the fire that the patriarchy tried to kill in women, the fire of the woman who knows her worth, who speaks her truth, and refuses to be objectified. So let's map this onto the current events, right? Keisha Golden and Lindsay Clancy. The Lilith, truth, fire, is exposing the legal system's lies. The Vesta, sovereignty, fire, is the act of self-defense. The woman who takes her own protection into her own hands because the state failed her. The South Node, release, fire, is the release of the belief that the state will save us. We have to let go of that lie. The state is not our ally. The state is the partner of the abuser. The South Node at 29 degrees Leo is the release of the fantasy of patriarchal protection. Now, Canada. So the Vesta, sovereignty, fire, is Canada withdrawing from the unequal partnership. The Lilith, truth, fire, is the acknowledgement that the U.S. is an unreliable and abusive partner. And the South Node, release, fire, is the release of the colonial relationship with the U.S. that Canada is refusing to be the abject object of American extraction. This is geopolitical Vesta in action. And then the Supreme Court mail ballot ruling the South Node, release, is the release of the illusion that democracy functions within the current system. The Lilith, truth, fire, is the exposure of the GOP, and the Vesta, sovereignty, fire, is the call for women and marginalized communities to build parallel structures of power. Do not depend on the ballot box alone. Build mutual aid, build community defense, and build economic sovereignty. Now let's go to Callaway Golf. Callaway Golf, a billion-dollar brand, released a promotional video featuring the YouTube collective Good Good. In the ad, Good Good co-founder Garrett Clark physically shoves Good Good contributor Alexis Mitowski and threatens her, "Don't touch my new driver." The, quote, creative concept was a parody of the horror film Obsession, a film about a man who becomes violently obsessed with a woman. The ad was pulled after a public outcry, but not before the damage was done. Good Good said the depicted actions were not aligned with our values, quote unquote. Callaway said they were disappointed and thanked Good Good for responding. Then Callaway CEO Chip Brewer admitted Callaway approved the ad and said the approval never should have happened. Mistakes were made. Retailers responded quickly. Dick's Sporting Goods and Golf Galaxy removed all Good Good products from their online stores. The Golf Channel delayed the premiere of Good Good's television show, reportedly because a sponsor, Golf Galaxy, demanded that their brand be removed. PGA Tour CEO Brian Rolapp asked whether Good Good had taken enough accountability, and he said, initially, no. I think that's what we saw was concerning and clearly not aligned with the PGA Tour values. We take it very seriously. I think their initial response was disappointing. It was a little bit defensive and late, but I think the responses are getting better. When asked whether Good Good sponsorship of the PGA Tour would be affected, he said, that's a bit of a fluid situation. The Lilith truth was the ad was seen. The shove was real. Many people approved that for it to be aired, and the public refused to look away. The Vesta sovereignty is consumers, especially women consumers, withdrew their dollars. Retailers withdrew the products. Sponsors withdrew their support. The PGA Tour said the relationship was fluid. So this is not a commitment, it's a warning. The South Node release is the release of the fantasy that a corporate apology means anything. It does not. The public saw it. It was never funny. We're just no longer pretending that any of it is okay. And the fire of the consumer who will no longer be gaslit, is learning exactly where to land. Vesta is not going retrograde because she is weak. She's going retrograde because she is intensifying. In the Hellenistic tradition, a stationing planet is a planet that is gathering power. It is like a lion crouching before it pounces. The retrograde is not a retreat, it is a reorientation. Vesta's fire has been scattered. She's been tending the hearths of the world, the homes and the families and the communities and the nations, and in return, she has received exploitation, burnout, climate change, the theft of her sacred energy. The retrograde in Aries in Vesta is saying, I'm taking my fire back. I am withdrawing my devotion from systems that do not deserve it. I am concentrating my energy on my own sovereignty, my own existence, and my own sacred self. So this is the political framework of socialist feminism. When labor is extracted without compensation, the worker strikes. Vesta is striking. She is withdrawing her sacred labor from the patriarchal economy, the economy of emotional labor, reproductive labor, domestic labor, and care work that has been the unacknowledged foundation of capitalism. When Vesta stations retrograde, she is calling for a general strike of the feminine, not a strike of wages, but a strike of presence. Women are being asked to withdraw their energy from men, institutions, and the nations that have been draining them. This is the cosmic equivalent of the 4B movement in South Korea, the refusal to date, to marry, to have children, or engage with the system. Canada walking away from the US is a national version of this strike. The US has been extracting Canadian resources for decades. Canada is finally saying, no more. We are tending our own flame. The South Node at 29 degrees Leo is the release of the wound of visibility. For centuries, women have been taught that their radiance is dangerous, that to be seen is to be targeted, and that to shine is to invite the pyre. Remember, this wound is deep. It is cellular. It is the reason that we hesitate to speak up, to take credit, to wear what we want, to laugh too loud, to be too ambitious. It is the internalized voice of the inquisitor saying, if you are too visible, I will burn you. This grand fire trine is the release of the wound. Lilith says, your visibility is your power. Vesta says, your devotion to yourself is your sacred duty. And the South Node says, let go. You are not the one who will be burned. The patriarchy is the one that is burning. 29 degrees Leo is the degree of death. To the king, it is the degree of the terminal ego. The patriarchy is dying. The terminal ego is flailing, limiting ballots, restricting abortion, criminalizing self-defense, building walls. These are all death throes of a system that knows that it is collapsing. The grand fire trine is the cosmic permission slip to stop being afraid of the dying king. He cannot hurt you anymore. The fire is exhausted. Your fire is just getting going. Keisha Golden and Lindsay Clancy are the proof. They have been seen. They have been demonized and criminalized and pathologized, and still the fire burns. Still they refuse to disappear. Still they speak. So they are proof that the exile is not a curse, it is a calling. They are proof that the fire was meant to destroy. You can become the fire that illuminates. And they are the proof that even at that anaretic degree, even at the end of the line, that there is power in the refusal to go out. The Grand Fire Trine of August 2026 is not the event that you watch, like getting special glasses and watching the eclipse. This is the event that you become. Lilith is the exile who refused to submit. Vesta is the priestess who withdrew her sovereignty to protect her flame. The South Node at 29 degrees Leo is the release of the terror that the patriarchy has used us to keep us small. The Grand Fire Trine is the alchemy where these three forces, exile, devotion, and release, combine into a single unstoppable current of empowerment. And we are watching it happen. The institutions are crumbling, the kings are dying, the courts are revealing their hypocrisy, the alliances are shifting, and in the middle of it all, the exiled woman stands at the gate, not to beg for entry, but instead to burn it down. You are not the victim of the pyre, you are the fire. Keisha Golden's fate is not just, it is a travesty. She pled guilty to something she is innocent of because the alternative was a death sentence, but she is still standing and she is still speaking and she is going home to her daughter. Lindsay Clancy's fate is uncertain, but the conversation shifted. The system is on trial as much as she is. Her suffering has become a mirror held up to a culture that does not care for mothers, does not support women, does not protect the vulnerable. She is the mad woman who is making us ask questions that we have been avoiding. Canada is not being difficult, it is being sovereign. The patriarchy is dying, its terminal ego is flailing, but the fire is burning. Dolly Parton is gone, but her fire has not been extinguished. It is finding new bodies and new voices and new struggles. Vesta is retrograde, but the retrograde is not a retreat. It is refocusing. That south node at 29 degrees is the releasing of the fear of the old king, and Lilith is speaking. And you, the next one to carry the flame. So it is the fire of our ancestors. It is the fire of the women who were burned. It is the fire of the priestesses who tended the hearth. It is the fire of the exiles who built new worlds. So let it burn the lies. Let it consume the fear. Let it reveal a truth that has always been there. And you were meant to burn brighter, not dimmer, brighter. Vesta stations, the fire intensifies, the south node is releasing, Lilith is speaking. And as a remember, the button only has power if you're afraid of the shock. You are not broken. You are not too much. I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, now here are the horoscopes. These are not predictions of what will happen to you. They are invitations to what is already waiting to happen through you. The fire is not coming. It is here. The question is not whether you will burn, is what you will illuminate. Cancer rising. Lilith in your 6th house, Vesta retrograde in your 10th house, and the south node in your 2nd house. You have spent years serving your family, your workplace, your community, as if your worth depended on their approval. That is the training ground. But this transit is the graduation. Vesta stationing retrograde in your 10th house is calling you to make your career your temple. Not a job, not a salary, but a calling. The question is no longer what can I do for others, but what is mine to do. The south node in your 2nd house invites you to release the belief that you must earn your place. You don't. Your place is already yours. You are being invited into public leadership, not because you were chosen, but because you are finally choosing yourself. This may look like stepping into a role that demands visibility or walking away from a professional obligation that has been draining you. Either way, you're no longer asking for permission. You are giving instructions, not to control, but to guide. You are becoming the authority that you have been waiting for. In the next 3 months, an opportunity will arise that asks you to speak publicly about something that you have only whispered in private. So take it. That is your coronation, not because the world is finally listening, but because you are finally speaking. Leos. You are not too much. You are exactly the amount that the world needs right now. The south node is in your 1st house, inviting you to release the identity of the dimmed woman, the one who learned to make herself smaller so that others could feel comfortable. That woman is not your destiny. In her place is the sovereign creator who knows her light is not arrogance, but obligation. Lilith in your 5th house is igniting a creative fire that is demanding expression. Not a hobby, but a legacy. You are being invited to produce something, art, business, a performance, a public declaration that will change how people see you. Vesta retrograde in your ninth house is asking you to found a new spiritual or philosophical framework. Your beliefs have been borrowed. Now you are being called to write your own. Some people will not understand you. That is not a problem. It is a sign that you are finally speaking your own language. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to be seen by those who are ready. In the next 6 weeks, you will be offered a platform, literal or metaphorical, to share your truth. Say yes. The world is hungry for the fire that you carry, even if it doesn't know yet how to name it. Virgo rising. Lilith in your 4th house, Vesta retrograde in your 8th, South Node in your 12th. You are not the healer of your family's wounds. You are the one who can release them. Lilith in your 4th house is the eruption of ancestral truth, the secrets, the silences, the buried traumas that have been passed down like heirlooms. You are being invited to speak them, not to fix, but to release. The South Node in your 12th house invites you to release the burden of generational shame. You are not responsible for what your mother endured, for what your grandmother survived, and what your father denied. Vesta retrograde in your 8th house is intensifying your transformative power. You are not analyzing the family system anymore. You are being called to dismantle what no longer serves. Gently, intentionally, with reverence for what was, and you are being invited to become the new matriarch of a lineage that is no longer defined by trauma, but by choice. And this may look like cutting a cord, figurative or literal, that your ancestors could not. It may look like saying something that has never been spoken out loud. Either way, you are freeing everyone who comes after you. In the next 2 months, a family secret may surface, or someone may challenge you about your family choices. Your response will be the moment that the chain begins to break, not with anger, but clarity. Libra rising. Lilith is in your 3rd house, Vesta retrograde in your 7th, South Node in your 11th house. You are not the peacemaker, you are the truth teller. The world has taught you that harmony is the highest good, that keeping the peace is more important than speaking the truth. This transit invites you to release that lie. Lilith in your 3rd house is igniting your voice. You are about to become dangerous, not because you're aggressive, but because you will no longer translate the abuser's words into something palatable. You are being asked to name the abuse, name the abuser, and let the room change around you. Vesta retrograde in your 7th house invites you to withdraw your devotion from relationships that are no longer reciprocal. This may look like leaving, not in anger, but in sovereignty. The South Node in your 11th house invites you to release the fantasy that your community will protect you if you are good enough. They won't. You are being called to build a new community, one on truth and not politeness. This is not about isolation, it is alignment. The people who are ready for you will find you. And in the next 4 weeks, a confrontation is coming. And it's one that you've been avoiding. Do not avoid it. Speak. The bridge was already burning. You are just acknowledging the fire. And in doing so, you are inviting the right people across. Scorpio. Lilith is in our 2nd house, Vesta retrograde in our 6th, South Node in our 10th. We are not defined by our work. We are defined by our power. The South Node in our 10th house invites us to release the identity of the successful woman that we have been trying to become, the one who climbed the ladder, who proved herself, who earned her place. That identity is not our destiny. In its place is the woman who owns her worth without explanation. Lilith in your 2nd house is the eruption of our value system. We are being invited to stop trading our intensity for a paycheck, to stop giving our transformation to a corporation that extracts our soul. Vesta retrograde in our 6th house is intensifying our sacred work, not our job, but our calling. We are being called to restructure our daily life so that it serves us, not the other way around. This may look like working less and creating more. It may look like becoming the mother of a new economy, one built not on extraction, but mutual flourishing. We are not being asked to abandon responsibility. We are being asked to redefine it. The prediction in the next 3 months, a health crisis or a work collapse may force us to stop in some way. That stop is not a failure. It is the beginning of our real career and the one that was always waiting for us. Sagittarius. Lilith in your first house, Venus retrograde in your fifth house, South Node in your ninth house. You are not a stranger in a strange land. You are the prophet of a new land. Lilith is conjunct your ascendant. You cannot hide. Your body, your voice, your existence is the political statement. The world may look at you and see the too much woman. That is not a problem. It is the sign that you are exactly what the world needs. Vesta retrograde in your fifth house is intensifying your creative sovereignty. You are being called to create something that cannot be ignored, not because you are trying to be seen, but because the fire is too bright to be hidden. The South Node in your ninth house invites you to release the borrowed truth, the inherited belief, the colonial framework that you were raised with. You are being called to become the theologian of the exile, someone who builds a belief system from the margins. This may look like public speaking, writing, teaching, or just living your truth unapologetically. People will come to you for answers, not because you are wise, but because you are free. In the next 2 months, you will say something publicly that will alienate some of your audience. Let them go. The other half will become your foundation, and they are the ones that you are meant to reach. Capricorn. Lilith is in your 12th house, Vesta retrograde in your 4th, and the South Node in your 8th. You are not the builder of the patriarchy structures. You are the one who makes space for the new. For years, you have built for others, your family, your nation, your institutions. You have been the responsible one, the breadwinner, the steady hand, and this transit invites you to release that role. Lilith in your 12th house is the eruption of your shadow, rage, exhaustion, the desire to burn it all down. Let it out. It is not destructive, it is cleansing. Vesta retrograde in your 4th house invites you to withdraw your fire from the family structure. You are not the patriarch, you are the priestess of your own sanctuary. The South Node in your 8th house invites you to release the inheritance of systemic power. You are being called to walk away from a legacy that was never yours to carry and build something new in its place. Something that serves you. This may look like a financial shift, a family boundary, or a radical redefinition of home. It's not selfish, it is sacred. In the next 3 months, a financial or familial obligation will dissolve, not because you failed, but because you refused. And that refusal is not a loss, it is your liberation. Aquarius. Lilith is in your 11th, Vesta retrograde in your 3rd, and the South Node in your 7th house. You are not a follower of revolutions. You are the founder of them. Lilith in your 11th house is igniting your collective power. You're being called to become the leader of the exiled, a voice for the silenced, a strategist for the marginalized. Keisha Golden and Lindsay Clancy are your sisters. Their stories are your stories. Vesta retrograde in your 3rd house is intensifying your sacred language. You are being called to write something, a manifesto, a book, a thread, a speech that changes the terms of the debate. The South Node in your 7th house invites you to release the alliances that are holding you back. You cannot partner with those who benefit from the system that you are dismantling. This may look like leaving a relationship or a collaboration or a community that doesn't align with you. You are being called to build a new coalition, not one based on compromise, but shared exile. And it is also not about isolation, but finding your people. In the next 6 weeks, an old ally may betray you. Do not mourn them, thank them. They are making space for your real people and the ones that will fight beside you, not against you. Pisces. Lilith in your 10th house, Vesta retrograde in your 2nd, South Node in your 6th house. You are not a dreamer who never acts. You are the visionary who manifests. For years, you have been told that your vision is impractical, that your calling is unrealistic, and that your dreams are too big. This transit invites you to let go of that story. Lilith is in your 10th house, is calling you into the public eye, not as a helper, but as a prophet. Vesta retrograde in your 2nd house is intensifying your value system. You are being called to restructure your entire relationship with money and possessions and worth. The South Node in your 6th house invites you to release the martyr complex. You are not the one who must die for the sins of the world. You are the vision. You are being called to step into a public role that demands you to speak your truth. And you will be surprised by how many people were waiting for you to do it. This may look like a podcast, a stage, a book deal, a leadership role. Not your ego, your embodiment. And in the next 2 months, you will be offered a platform. Take it. It is your prophecy becoming real, not because you are perfect, but because you are willing. Aries. Lilith in your 9th house, Vesta retrograde in your 1st, and South Node in your 5th house. You are not fighting the patriarchy with its own weapons. You are the warrior who refuses the battlefield. Vesta is stationing retrograde in your 1st house, right on your skin, in your bones, in the way that you hold your body. You are being asked to pull your fire back into yourself, not to retreat, but to rearm. Lilith in your 9th house demands that you question every truth that you were taught about who you were supposed to be. You are not a soldier for a general who does not care if you live or die. You are the commander of your own soul. The South Node in your 5th house invites you to release the need to perform. You do not need to be the spectacle. You need to be the source. You are being called to stop fighting the external war and start winning the internal one. And from that internal sovereignty, you will transform the battlefield itself. This may look like stepping back from a conflict that is not yours to fight. It is not cowardice, but strategy. In the next 4 weeks, an external conflict will arise that demands your energy. Do not engage. Your battlefield is within. The external war is a distraction from your real power. Taurus. Lilith is in your 8th house, Vesta retrograde in your 12th, and the South Node in your 4th. You are not the stable one holding the earth together. You are the volcano that reshapes the land. Lilith in your 8th house is the eruption of your deepest, most primal power, the power of transformation, of death and rebirth, of sexuality, and of survival. You are being called to become someone you did not know you could be. Vesta retrograde in your 12th house invites you to withdraw your devotion from the world and into the womb of your unconscious. You need to go underground, not because you are hiding, but because you are gestating. The South Node in your 4th house invites you to release the ancestral homestead, the land, the family, the roots that you have held down. You are being called to leave a place, a person, or a pattern that has defined you since birth, and to not look back. It's not abandonment, it is evolution. In the next 3 months, a profound transformation will begin, physical, emotional, or spiritual. Do not resist it. It is not the end of you. It is the beginning of who you are becoming. Gemini. Lilith is in your 7th house, Vesta is your 11th, and the South Node in your 3rd house. You are not the observer of injustice. You are the chronicler of liberation. Lilith in your 7th house demands that you name your enemy, not out of hatred, but clarity. Who's exploiting you? Who's taking your energy and giving nothing back? Name them, not in private, but publicly. Vesta retrograde in your 11th house invites you to withdraw your social labor. Stop being the connector, the social butterfly, the community organizer for a community that doesn't fight for you. The South Node in your third house invites you to release the lies that you have been telling yourself. You are not fine. You are not crazy. And the gaslighting stops here. You are being called to write or speak something that becomes the testimony of your community, a document of liberation that others will cite and share. This is not about ego, it is truth. In the next 2 months, you will be called to testify, literally or metaphorically. That testimony will change everything, not because you are powerful, but because you are honest.